What would you do if a single phone call turned your peaceful lakeside barbecue into a battleground of pride, prejudice, and betrayal? The sun hung low over Lake Serenity, painting the water with streaks of gold and amber. My lake cabin, a modest wooden retreat nestled among pines, was alive with laughter and the sizzle of burgers on the grill. It was the kind of summer evening that felt like a gift friends gathered, kids chasing fireflies, and the air thick with the smoky promise of a perfect night. I, Marcus Reed, had spent months planning this barbecue, a chance to reconnect with old college buddies and their families. The cabin was my sanctuary, a place where city noise faded and life felt simple. But simplicity, as I'd soon learn, was a fragile illusion. The trouble started with Karen Whitaker, the self-appointed queen of the Lake Serenity Homeowners Association. Karen was the kind of woman who carried a clipboard like a scepter and wore her authority like a crown. Her lakefront mansion, a glass and steel monstrosity, loomed over the rest of us, a constant reminder of her wealth and influence. I'd had run-ins with her before petty complaints about my dock's paint color or the height of my mailbox, but I'd always brushed her off. Live and let live, right? That was my mistake. As I flipped burgers, joking with my friend Javier about his terrible golf swing, I noticed Karen's golf cart humming down the dirt path. Her platinum hair glinted in the fading light, and her lips were pursed tighter than a banker's vault. Behind her trailed two other HOA members, Greg, a wiry accountant with a permanent scowl, and Linda, a retired schoolteacher who seemed to live for Karen's approval. The trio parked at the edge of my property, and Karen marched toward me, her heels clicking like a metronome of doom. "Marcus," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "This gathering is a violation of HOA regulations. Open flames are prohibited after 6 p.m., and you've got at least 20 people here. The limit is 10. I wiped my hands on my apron, forcing a smile. "Karen, it's a barbecue. We're just eating and catching up. No one's causing trouble." Her eyes narrowed. "Rules are rules, Marcus. I've already called 911. The sheriff will be here shortly to shut this down." The air seemed to thicken, the laughter around me fading as heads turned. Javier stepped closer, his voice low. "She's bluffing, man. No way she called the cops over a barbecue." But Karen wasn't bluffing. Her phone was in her hand, the screen glowing with a call log that showed 911 at the top. My stomach churned. This wasn't just about rules, it was personal. Karen had never liked me, the outsider who'd bought the cabin with cash from my tech startup days, the guy who didn't bow to her little empire. I glanced at my guest's daughter Lily, chasing her cousins. My wife Sarah, pouring lemonade. My old friend Aisha, who'd flown in from Chicago. This was our night, and Karen was trying to ruin it. "Karen," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you don't need to do this. Let's talk it out." She smirked, folding her arms. "Too late. The sheriff's on his way. Maybe next time you'll read the bylaws." The crowd murmured, tension rippling through the yard. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me, waiting to see how I'd handle this. Then, a voice broke the silence, a voice I didn't recognize. "Actually, Karen, you might want to check your own bylaws." I turned to see a man leaning against my porch railing, a beer in hand. He was in his late 50s, with salt and pepper hair and a weathered face that suggested a life spent outdoors. I hadn't noticed him before, but he carried himself with a quiet confidence, like someone who knew more than he let on. His name, I'd later learn, was Tom Haskell, a friend of a friend who'd tagged along with Javier's crew. Karen blinked, caught off guard. "Who are you?" Tom took a slow sip of his beer, unfazed. "Just a guest. But I've got a copy of the Lake Serenity HOA bylaws in my truck. Used to live here years ago, before you turned this place into a gated fiefdom." Section 12, Paragraph 3. Private gatherings on personal property are exempt from size restrictions provided they do not exceed noise ordinances or pose a public safety risk. Marcus's barbecue isn't breaking any rules. Karen's face flushed red, her clipboard trembling in her hands. "That's outdated. We amended that rule last year." "Did you?" Tom said, raising an eyebrow. "Because I checked the county records before I came. Amendments require a 2/3 vote and public notice. I didn't see any record of that. Did you, Greg? Linda. Greg shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Karen's glare. Linda mumbled something about needing to check her notes. The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. I felt a spark of hope, but also unease. Who was this guy, and why was he carrying HOA bylaws in his truck? Before Karen could respond, sirens wailed in the distance. My heart sank. The sheriff was coming, and no amount of clever legalese was going to stop him from crashing my party. I looked at Sarah, who gave me a nod that said, "We'll get through this." But I wasn't so sure. The sheriff's SUV rolled up, lights flashing. Sheriff Daniels, a burly man with a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped out. "Got a call about a disturbance," he said, scanning the crowd. "What's going on?" Karen launched into her complaint, her voice shrill as she waved her clipboard. "This gathering is illegal. Open flames. Too many people. No permit." "Hold on," Daniels interrupted, raising a hand. "Marcus, this your place?" "Yes, sir," I said, stepping forward. "Just a family barbecue. No trouble." Daniels glanced at the kids playing tag, the tables laden with food, the quiet hum of conversation. Then he turned to Karen. "Ma'am, I've got actual crimes to deal with. This looks like a picnic, not a riot. Unless you've got evidence of a real issue, I'm not shutting it down." Karen's jaw dropped. "But the bylaws." "Bylaws aren't laws," Daniel said, his tone final. "Marcus, keep the noise down after dark. Karen, don't waste my time again." As Daniels drove off, the crowd erupted in cheers. Karen stood frozen, her face a mask of humiliated fury. Greg and Linda slunk back to their golf cart, avoiding eye contact. I turned to thank Tom, but he was already gone, his beer bottle sitting empty on the railing. The barbecue resumed, the mood lighter than ever. Javier slapped my back, laughing. "Man, you dodged a bullet." Sarah hugged me, whispering, "I'm proud of you." But something gnawed at me. Tom's intervention had been too perfect, too convenient. Who was he, really? Later that night, as the stars glittered above the lake, I found Tom sitting by the water, skipping stones. I sat beside him, the silence heavy. "You saved my ass back there," I said. "But how'd you know all that about the bylaws?" Tom chuckled, his eyes distant. "I used to own your cabin, Marcus. Lived here for 10 years before Karen and her HOA drove me out. They didn't like my old truck, my loud music, my freedom. I lost everything in the Fight Me savings, my marriage. When Javier invited me tonight, I saw a chance to settle a score. I stared at him, the pieces clicking into place. Tom wasn't just a guest, was a ghost from the lake's past. A man with a grudge. His calm demeanor hid a fire I hadn't seen until now. "You planned this?" I asked. "Not exactly," he said, tossing another stone. "But I knew Karen would pull something. She always does. I just brought the ammo." I should have been grateful, but his words chilled me. This wasn't just about my barbecue, it was a war I'd stumbled into, one that had been raging long before I arrived. I thought of Karen's humiliated face, the way she'd stormed off. This wasn't over. The next morning, I woke to a letter slid under my cabin door. It was from the HOA signed by Karen, Greg, and Linda. They were suing me for defamation and disruption of community harmony, citing my public humiliation of Karen as grounds. The lawsuit was flimsy, a desperate power grab, but it would cost me thousands to fight. I stood on my porch, staring at the lake, the same lake that had promised peace. My daughter's laughter echoed from the yard, but it felt distant, drowned out by the weight of what was coming. I'd won the battle, but the war was just beginning. Karen's call to 911 had been a spark, and now the whole HOA was against me. Tom's victory had come at a cost, one I'd be paying for years. Freedom, I realized, wasn't free. It was a fight, and I just picked a side. ND.